Hi and welcome to the tech demo of Magic Sandbox, a hands-on learning environment for Kubernetes. You're now connected to a real cluster with a live representation of the state of your cluster to the right. Since we focus on task-based learning, you can interact with your cluster through this interface, but we also have a full IDE environment for you to work in. Let's have a look at a lesson we've been developing.
Okay, let's take a look at a simple deployment object. Now, as a whole, this YAML file gets posted to the API server and the pods it defines get deployed to the cluster. Then, in the background, there's a control loop running that makes sure what is actually running on the cluster matches our desired state defined here in the YAML file. Anyway, look, the top two lines tell us that the object we're defining is a deployment object from the apps v1 API subgroup. The v1 bit telling us that the object specification is either stable or GA. Then under metadata, we're just giving it a name this time, MSB intro. But you know what? The good stuff or the action happens here in the spec section. So first up, we can see that we're asking for 3 pod replicas. So that's 3 instances of the container specified further down here. So these 5 or whatever lines that we've got highlighted are the container that will run in each of those 3 pod replicas. So this line here is the image to base the container on. We're calling the container web CTR. And then this line says it's listening on port 8080. Magic. But remember, further up here, we are asking for 3. So when we post this to the API server, we'll get 3 identical pods, each running this particular container. Then remember, because the deployment controller runs as a reconciliation loop, if anything happens, like maybe a failed node or something, and we drop from our desired state of 3 maybe down to 2, well, the controller kicks into life, spins up an extra pod replica, taking us back to our desired state of 3. Now, as well, see this label here under spec.selector.match labels? This absolutely has to match this other label down here under template.metadata.labels. You see, this is the way the deployment controller knows which pods on the cluster that it's responsible for looking after and managing. But you know what? Talk is cheap. Let's actually deploy this. Okay, as you can see in the live display on the right, we've got a deployment object working with a replica set, and together they are managing these 3 pods. And it's just like we saw in the YAML, yeah? Well, that's cool, but I reckon it's time for you to get your own hands dirty with a few exercises.